rise tonight to speak about the shutdown, and I know the hour is late. I'll cut short my remarks, but we're now, as you've heard, and as many Americans know, in day 24 of this shutdown. This is a shutdown that the president, a number of weeks ago, said that he, I'm not quoting him exactly, but he seemed to want to have a shutdown, and then he went forward and executed it. Even after this body, the United States Senate, voted unanimously just before Christmas to extend funding for the government until February, so we could continue debates until then. But he chose to upend that, and now we have this shutdown lasting not just 24 days, but now the longest in American history. Not a distinction any president or administration or Congress, especially the majority here in the Senate, should be proud of. And I think it's very clear that there's a way out of this, and the way out of this would not foreclose. In fact, it would enhance the chances that we can have a fulsome, thorough, policy-oriented debate on border security, which we should have. We should actually enlarge that to speak to a lot of, or debate, I should say, a lot of major immigration issues, and maybe come up with a bipartisan bill like we had in 2013, where 68 votes brought forward a bill out of the United States Senate that had probably the best border security provisions in recent American history, had a pathway to citizenship, a long and arduous path, but a pathway nonetheless, as well as guest worker provisions, so that employers could have order and rules and certainty as to their workforce and their immigration system. So we have a very much broken system that would have been 5 years at least into the fixing of, or the repair of, if we had passed that bill, or if the House had passed that bill, I should say. So 68 votes in the Senate and died in the House, and we haven't seen a bill like that since. Certainly not any bill that was as comprehensive. So here we are with 24 days of government employees being held hostage by the administration. And I think there's some complicity here in the Senate as well, because we know that there's a bill that would open 8 of the 9 agencies that's here in the Senate. We could pass it tonight, tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon. We could pass it very quickly, because remember, the first act of a Democratic House, Democratic majority House, the first act was to pass Republican appropriation bills. Bills that sailed through the United States Senate, Republican majority, with little to no opposition. So that's where we find ourselves, with a way out of the predicament, which I believe would not only open up the government, which would be good for the whole country, both parties all across the country, and especially the people most adversely affected, but it would also isolate the issue, right? The president says that he wants to have changes made, and he has a different view than I do. But let's have weeks of debate on border security or anything else he wants to talk about. Let's bring in the experts. Have a dueling set of experts. See who the American people supports. Do they support one point of view that says we want border security, or do they support the other point of view that says that you want a wall or some steel barrier? And that's kind of the choice. Do you want real border security, or do you want something else? But we should have a debate about that. If anything, the debate about the shutdown would be set aside, because it would be over. The government would be opened. Naturally, the country, the press, the Senate, the House would naturally focus then on issues of dispute. That would isolate the issue, but it's very difficult to maintain an argument or a debate, a reasoned debate, a debate based upon facts and policy and law, and I hope the advice and consultation of border security experts, not just politicians. We've got a lot of smart people in the Congress, but very few, if any, of them are border security experts. Let's listen to the experts. Let's take testimony from them, like they had back in 2013 that undergirded the bill that got 68 votes, right? So that would be a way to isolate and focus on the issue, instead of bringing misery to what is now hundreds of thousands of Americans, soon to grow to millions, and then tens of millions, because those who miss paychecks today are a very big number. That number will grow when it starts to affect government services, which I'll outline rather quickly because of the hour. But we've got a lot of working men and women in the country now working without pay or being furloughed, worrying about whether they can make a mortgage payment or put food on the table or pay their heating bill. They don't have a choice. They can't just say, well, sir, I can't pay the bill today because the government shut down, so just wait and you're going to be just fine. No, they have to pay the bill. Thank God we passed legislation for back pay, but for some of these folks, back pay won't be enough because their credit will be adversely impacted. Their credit may be destroyed, even if they get the back pay. On Friday, 820,000 federal workers, including 14,000 in my home state of Pennsylvania, missed a paycheck. More than 1,300 Department of Agriculture employees, 990 Department of Interior employees, 1,200 Federal Bureau of Prisons employees, 775 FAA and TSA employees, 700 EPA employees, as well as U.S. attorneys or assistant U.S. attorneys in different parts of Pennsylvania. I just share one part, a small part of a longer constituent letter that I got from a constituent. This constituent said, I'm currently a furloughed U.S. State Department employee and one of your constituents. I will soon miss a paycheck, and with car payments, student loan payments, etc. on the horizon, my family of 5 will likely suffer. Beyond our personal hardship, this shutdown is both expensive and counterproductive to border security. I couldn't agree more with that constituent, with the argument that that constituent makes. But what's even more compelling, of course, is not the argument about the policy debate here in Washington. The more compelling part of that, of course, is missing car payments, student loan payments, and a family of that size suffering. That is real life. That is not just a Washington theoretical debate. That's real life for that family. How about farmers? These are people that are not federal government employees, but they're affected by the fact that federal government employees are not at their desk, are not in the field. Farmers can't visit their local Farm Service Agency office to get assistance. We have a new farm bill, one of the great bipartisan achievements. Democrats and Republicans, House and Senate came together for a big farm bill. That's great. Glad we got that done at the end of 2018. Bad news is, some of that requires advice and consultation and engagement with Farm Service Agency offices. They're not able to give that assistance. How about seniors who rely upon transportation services and nutrition services provided by the Enhanced Mobility of Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities Program and the Commodity Supplemental Food Program, also known as the Senior Food Box, are now at risk of being isolated. These seniors, I should say, are now at risk of being isolated at home and without food. Approximately 2,400 units of low-income housing in Pennsylvania are in jeopardy because the Department of Housing and Urban Development won't be able to renew a contract. More than 2/3 of the people who receive this type of assistance are seniors and people with disabilities. The people who benefit from this type of housing assistance have average incomes of less than $13,000. 2 million Pennsylvanians receiving food assistance. It's actually about 1.8, but it's almost 2. 1.8 million Pennsylvanians receive assistance through the SNAP program, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. We used to call it food stamps. They may lose access if the shutdown drags on much longer. I know the administration said, oh, don't worry, everything's okay for February. That's in essence what the administration said. Haven't given us a definitive word about March. So 1.8 million Pennsylvanians, a huge share of them have a disability. A huge share of them are a child in a household who can't support themselves, can't afford food on their own. They're children. They benefit as well. They're part of the 1.8. And a lot of them, of course, are seniors. who deserve this program because that's what we do in America. We try to help people who need food assistance. That's called being America, being the strong country that we are, showing how strong we are, not just by virtue of our military, our GDP. Everyone knows that. No one comes close in the world. But we are also strong because we say we care about people with disabilities. We want to make sure if they need the Medicaid, they get that kind of health care. If they need food assistance, we're going to get that for them. We care about our seniors, too, because we're America and we're strong, and it's an American value. So these programs are important. So that when they're shut down, that's not an American value being upheld. So when we talk about these programs, about food assistance, this is also real life. Literally today or the day when you lose food assistance. Or why should that assistance even be the subject of uncertainty? Uncertainty because someone doesn't get their way on a policy matter here in Washington? So I guess it's okay for any member of Congress, because we're a co-equal branch of government. It's not like the president is higher than the Congress. We're co-equal. So I guess because the president wants to shut the government down to make a point about a policy matter, I guess that should be the option that any member of the House or the Senate should exercise. So the next time it'll be a member of Congress. When you lose a battle on a policy matter, or you don't propose the funding on time, which is what happened here, they didn't ask for the money at the beginning of the year, so they tried to shoehorn it in at the end of the year. So I guess if you lose the policy debate, or your bill doesn't pass, you vote to shut the government down. You take action to shut the government down like the president did. I don't think that's the way any party or any country should operate. 200,000 Pennsylvanians may lose access to the Women, Infants, and Children's Program, which provides critical nutritional support to mothers and young children. 200,000. So there's the million, or there's the 2 million I talked about. 1.8 million people getting the benefits of the SNAP program, which, by the way, helps all Americans. People say, what do you mean by that? Well, it does. You spend $1 on SNAP, you get $1.80 back in economic activity. Because people have to eat, and they tend to spend that money quickly. It helps everybody. So the SNAP program is not just a nice thing to do for people that have a disability or seniors or children. The SNAP program helps all of us because it helps stimulate the economy. So even if you're disinterested in supporting this program, but you're interested in your own economy, your own American economy growing, you should support the SNAP program. It's also the right thing to do because it's a darn good program. But when you add 1.1 million people getting SNAP and then 200,000 people that benefit from the WIC program, now you've gotten over 2 million just in one state. Now these programs aren't out of money this week or the month of January or the month of February. But we don't know about March yet. We have not gotten any guarantees about March. And even if we got a guarantee about March, what about April? That is far from guaranteed. So that's what we're talking about here. Why should these people have to wait? Why should a farmer have to wait weeks or months to talk to a Farm Service Agency office? Why should a family who's got food insecurity as part of their lives not be able to get something to eat because we're having a policy debate here? Why shouldn't we give them the certainty that they vote for us to ensure? So it's unconscionable and unacceptable, and I wish I could come up with better words than that because they're not at all adequate. But it is unconscionable that children and moms and hungry Americans will suffer because of this shutdown. The president says he's concerned about crime and the flow of dangerous drugs into the country. And I agree with him. A lot of Americans do, of course. But the shutdown is significantly impairing the FBI and the DEA's law enforcement efforts. These are part of the list of agencies that are impacted. Agents are still doing their work to keep the public safe. They're dedicated. They're going to do their work no matter what. But with many analysts on furlough, it's getting harder and harder to work effectively to keep the public safe. I want an FBI that's got all the resources they need. Everybody on duty, everyone working. But if the FBI is undermined because of the shutdown, we are less safe. If the DEA, Drug Enforcement Agency, if that is undermined because of the shutdown, we are less safe. You don't have to be a law enforcement expert to say that. So it goes on from there, Mr. President. I have more, but I won't because of the hour. But as I'll go back to the beginning, there are adverse impacts today with people not being paid as of Friday. That alone is compelling and urgent and insulting, frankly, to us as Americans, and directly insulting to those families who don't deserve this. It's going to get a lot worse, though. That number is going to grow and grow of people, not just those who are directly affected with their paycheck and their livelihoods and their credit rating and all that, but it's also going to grow from there. It's going to affect people who depend upon the federal government for help when they're vulnerable, when they're hungry, when they want an answer to a question, when they want to close on a mortgage or do a long list of other things. And for the life of me, I don't understand why we would not pass a bill that is sitting in this chamber that we could pass to open 8 of the 9 agencies that are closed until the end of the fiscal year, September 30th. So the shutdown will be over for those 8 agencies, and then you'd have one agency, Homeland Security, that would get short-term funding, which would be another reason we could continue the debate, another way to focus attention on border security, whatever else anybody wants to talk about here. Focus the attention on that issue. Remove the issue that's in front of all of us, which is the government, 25% of the government, and a lot of it, affecting a lot of people, is closed, shuttered, not working, not effective, not delivering on results. So there's an easy solution here, which not only does not foreclose a debate on border security, effective, expert recommended border security, but in anything, I think it enhances a possibility that there'll be a more engaged debate on border security. And as I said, I hope it would grow to a larger immigration debate. So, Mr. President, with that, I will yield the floor.